about the solo expedition first.
Well, the solo exhibition is going to be Paul Christopher amped up. So
Okay.
I'm going to share a lot of layers of myself that
Okay.
I haven't publicly shared.
Okay.
Another point is
Yeah.
be fearless.
Yeah.
When it comes to
Peel
creativity,
those layers back.
and when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's be fearless.
Yeah.
Because, there can be a guideline, but everybody's story and everyone's journey is different.
Right.
So for me, I'm going to be sharing some different sides of art that I've never showed before. Some sculpture, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Nobody has seen
I'm
any
like,
of
where
these
is it? Preview.
things. And there's just going to be some different media to share who I am
Yeah.
as a person, as an artist, and some of my pains. I think underneath it all, if you're relatable, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's business,
Yeah.
you can be in any profession, and as long as you're relatable
Yeah.
at the core, your personal and professional life,
Mesh together.
they kind of mesh together.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't necessarily feel like work either.
Yeah.
That's why as much as I do, I'm always like happy for
Yeah.
the most part. I'm like enjoying life.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you're kind of like centered with yourself, and I think that's a great point, because when you become an entrepreneur, you have to like really know yourself. And I think a lot of people struggle just like trying to create a business, without taking the time to like get to know who they are. And I think you going back to the 6 months that you took off, I think that really helped you to establish kind of your own point of view. And that's just as important in creative world, art and poetry and written, as it is in business. Because if you don't know who you are, it goes back to the quote, like if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And that's, throughout life. And
yeah, you need your backbone.
Yeah.
Your backbone needs to be
gotta
beautiful.
be strong. It's
You're-
gotta be strong.
when you're centered with yourself,
Yeah.
you feel whole.
Yeah.
And you don't get tripped up so easily
Yeah.
from like the little things.
Yeah.
Nothing is ever going to really be perfect. And I had a couple of shows where I was trying so hard to do every single thing, and I wasn't enjoying the moment because I was like blinded just by perfection.
Yeah.
I needed to make sure that this was done. So, so there were like name tags on all the art. People are there to see the art. People are there to enjoy the ambiance.
Right.
They don't need to necessarily see all the
Right.
name tags. Like
Right.
sometimes, in a crunch, you have to say, okay, you know what, this isn't gonna get done.
Right.
It's still gonna be perfect, and own it, and you just
Yeah.
still have fun with it.
Yeah.
Seeing beauty and finding like those little things that make you smile or make you laugh.
Yeah.
And enjoying it and going into every room and every situation lighthearted.
Yeah.
Lighthearted, it's going to translate to confidence.
Yeah.
And you don't need to, again, what's your level of success? How do you measure value? We're all valuable.
Yeah.
And we're not going to always hit 100.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
The point is that you don't have
Yeah.
to walk into every room
Yeah.
and walk out.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
That's a possibility too.
Yeah.
And that's what, it's hard. It's definitely hard, having no said to you plenty of times or having people challenge you.
Yeah.
But that's how you grow and that's how you develop. And also we're in New York City.
Yeah.
To me, if you want to live here,
Yeah.
and really make it to any capacity, as well as the world. So we live in a very challenging world.
Yeah.
You have to tune out the noise.
Right.
You have to tune out the noise and be like, I'm just as valid as every other person in this room,
Right.
or I wouldn't be here.
Right.
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 And when you get to that point, and if somebody comes at you wrong, I'm like, okay, thank you, next.
Right.
You know, it's like,
right.
I don't want that person in my circle.
Exactly.
You know, and that goes for friends to family to business professionals and anything. We carve out what our surrounding is.
Right.
And if you surround yourself with the right people and the right environment and the right inspiration, then we have every reason to feel confident.
Right.
We're gonna have our moments of feeling like low self-esteem.
Right.
But on the up and up, you know, we just have things a little more centered and balanced.
Yeah. And then also, you know, you take criticism as like for face value. Like, okay, you have this opinion. Okay. You know, it doesn't have to eat away at, you know, who you are. Even though sometimes it's like, oh, this is my baby, I created this. But it's also someone else's opinion, as you said earlier. And like, that's okay for them to have an opinion about your work. And that person, there's no reason to like have a push and pull with them and a struggle with them trying to bring them onto your side.
Right.
That's not your person.
No, and
You know?
I think what you just said is also very important. I think being able to take criticism, but you know, you have to pull from it.
Right.
So maybe, you know, that person didn't come at you right because they didn't really validate what they were saying. Like if somebody said like, you know, I don't like, you know, any of these tile paintings.
Yeah.
And I just left with that, how am I going to make that useful?
Right.
I would have to ask them, well, why?
Right.
Well, do you like it in comparison? Do you not like it at all? Do you just not like it as much as my other work?
Right.
You know, and start to chip away at that. If somebody gives you something negative, turn it into positive.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So tell me, how can I change?
Right.
How can I make that? And you challenge them.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's also disarming them because
Right.
they've come with this armor and this shield of confidence, but it's really just a shield. Under those layers, you don't know what's there, you know, and
you don't know what's there, and hopefully the person's intentions are good.
Right.
You know, so hopefully it is constructive criticism, and if it isn't, now they're gonna look dumbfounded, you know, and it's like, okay, well, so then what was your point?
Right.
You're clearly just an asshole that you're just trying to chip away at me.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and you get that, and it's part of the growing process. It's part of the growing process. But so you've blossomed and you've sold a number of paintings, and I really would love to like go through and kind of like show some of them what you can and kind of describe, you know, your feeling maybe a little bit. And this is your studio, and we love it.
So this piece up here is called Dreams, and it's one of my favorite pieces. So all of my art I paint in rotation. So there's no right or wrong way to hang this, and each rotation tells another part of the story.
Okay.
And that also allows you to enjoy it every
Right.
which way
Right.
and decide how you want to hang it.
Right. Or where, because you can even move it around the house.
Exactly. And so in this, I love to travel. So you'll see different cities.
Okay.
And there are cities I've been to and cities that I want to go to.
Yeah.
I don't know, because they're all part of my dreams. And I decided to add the rose petals in gold for a couple of reasons. I think almost every time that I've traveled, I could think to either a person or a situation I was going through, and you know, there's always love attached.
Yeah.
You know, so the rose petal is love, and it's like, what love was that?
Right.
And where was it attached? And you know, are you carrying it with you when you're traveling? Or you know, if it's in a romantic sense, and I was dating somebody, I'm there to enjoy this trip, and we can communicate, but I'm here to enjoy my environment.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a couple of different meanings, but then the gold is symbolic also of a few different things, but it's left more to interpretation.
Okay.
So I don't want to share too much.
Okay.
And whereas this one over here is,
Let me help you. Here, I'll hold it.
so right here, I created this. People have asked me, like, is this New York? And I say, I mean, I'm from New York, so a lot of my paintings will have New York in them, of course, but it doesn't have to be New York.
You could definitely like interpret the yellow as yellow cabs and the lighting on the
Right.
buildings.
And that for me, it was New York.
Yeah.
For you, it doesn't have to be. And the yellow cab and the traffic, and it was more like the highway to get there.
Yeah.
You know, from when I was a young boy, I always wanted to be here.
Yeah.
And so at that point, maybe that was what I saw as success. When I get to New York, and for a lot of people, I think that I've come across, you know, that just living in New York, regardless of your space or the money you're making or whatever,
it's like a significant move for them.
Right, it's a significant move. So this is kind of like traveling on that journey, traveling on that highway to get there.
There's a lot of movement in there, and it does kind of like have or make you feel like very energetic. Or for me, I'm like, oh, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Whereas,
movement.
and then this one,
Oh, very cool.
so I want to ask you instead, what do you take from this piece?
For some reason, it just makes me feel like I'm on a rooftop in New York, and just like I love to be in New York on a rooftop when the sky is just super clear, or maybe there are a few like very solid white clouds. So that's the feeling that I get from this.
Nice,
Yeah.
I love that. Well, and I love I love that feeling too. Even when we've been on a couple of rooftops.
Right, together.
Together.
Yeah.
I think that's a definite beauty of living in New York City.
Yeah.
For me, this piece is called Today. The other one was Today. So, point is, today is a new chapter. It's a new story. It's a new day. It's a new breath. So you give life to it. That's why this building I decided to create pretty much in white, where these ones are all defined.
Okay.
And these are tiles for a backsplash, like in the kitchen,
Yeah.
that I used. And there's just a couple of them because as much as we want to just completely live in the present moment, it's impossible to forget about the past, and you shouldn't.
Right.
So there's always going to be moments that we're reflecting on, but we should stay in our present state to find that and to have a focus on the future as well.
Yeah, we've all been there. Living in the past, and you're like, snap out of it.
These pieces, so what's really cool is, I'll show you the phone app that I have started.
Oh, wow.
So I had co-wrote this song, and that's a line of the poetry for this piece.
Yeah.
And the name of the painting, and now you can play with it.
Oh, wow.
So those are other tiles that I made.
That is amazing. So you can
create your own piece essentially
wow.
with other pieces that I made.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's brilliant.
Thank you. I just had to stop a little bit because so that is one of my projects that I had to say I've already spent thousands of dollars onto it. It's not something that's, you know, financially benefiting me right now.
Yeah.
So it's a great idea. It's a cool idea.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. But I've had to pause it, you know, and do it more in segments rather than put all my money there and do that right now.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. I'm in the app building process right now, and it's a money drain. I mean, you just keep flushing money down the drain, and I mean, you don't mean to, but, you know, it takes a lot of effort to get your vision into a technical medium that has an output. You know, it takes a lot. So.
Yeah, and it's, it's like we're talking our language, and
Yeah.
the coders and everything, they're talking another language.
Exactly.
And it's like we have to make sure that we're talking the same language.
Right.
And you're waiting sometimes to see the final product,
Yeah.
and you're like, but this isn't what I was explaining or,
Yeah.
or envisioning, and then you have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
So that is definitely challenging.
Yeah.
I'll show you another piece. This one is called DNA. And you were at my show at Zaha Hadid's building in Chelsea. So this piece I exhibited there in June. And it's called DNA. It's basically, you'll see a lot of patterns of 3 in there. So I have 2 older brothers. And that's, them, they have such a big piece of me growing up. And my middle brother, Matthew, he was killed unfortunately when he had just turned 17. That was one of the tragedies I referenced earlier. So, I hold him very close to my heart. I speak to him often. Every time I do anything crazy and adventurous, or I go into a room that I'm intimidated by, I pray to God and I pray to my brother. That's another ritual of mine. But in this piece, there is a lot of me and a lot of my childhood with the 2 of them.
I love this piece.
Thank you.
So how many pieces did you show there again?
For this show, I just showed this piece.
Okay.
For my other New York show that you were at, I showed, I think, 17 pieces.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
And
none of those are here now.
Nope.
So they've been sold.
They have been sold. Actually, this piece
was there.
Was there.
It was.
This, I think, was the only one.
I did recognize this one.
And this is one of my favorite pieces.
Yeah.
It's called Blue Who. And I have had 2 offers on it, but I didn't give it up.
Yeah. Why not?
The first one I just wasn't ready. And that, kind of solidifies how I haven't done this to just make money. It's, it's my heart, it's my soul. So for me, a sale it's great, but I'm not looking at the dollar figure. Just if it's a part of my heart and my soul, if I connect with you, I want and it's gonna be in your home. That's equally as important to me.
So, talk a little bit about this, because this to me, I wanted to ask you at the last show. This is very kind of. It's got a lot of anger in it, but it's also, to me, got a lot of release and
So a lot
I don't speak artist, but that's that's how it makes me feel. So you tell me what it is.
So a lot of people have interpreted this piece as dark for me, which I found kind of interesting, and I can see it maybe in my color choices, but for me this isn't dark or heavy in a negative sense. When I was going through some hard times in my life, I always turned to art and to education. So I used to study ridiculous amounts for an exam, because that's where I was just releasing what I had to release. And in those moments, I was serious. Again, I always had music playing, but it didn't necessarily mean dark in a bad sense. But a lot of people have seen that. But again, it's the creative flow and life. It's happening as we speak. So much is happening. In a single breath, so much is filtering through our mind. So maybe there are parts of this that should feel anger and a little more solemn and heavier.
Well, you
know?
did say that, when you are feeling emotional, that you do turn to your books, you do turn to art. So, maybe that is the release of those negative feelings.
Completely. So there's like a whole mix, and in all the art, you can see and feel a difference,
Right. No, I think it's a beautiful.
It's a current.
Piece to your collection. It's definitely different though than what I've seen.
And I'll
before.
show you. So maybe it's a little easier to see.
Okay.
Do you see the man?
Is that what you do when you're studying?
No, but I was just creating and I said, wow, that's amazing. And then somebody goes, did you paint yourself? I said, did I? And then they go, it looks like you had your hair flipped. So I said, hold on. And I go, oh shit. I said, it kind of does look like that. That is not what I was going for in the moment. I just had a vision of I saw something in a magazine that I thought was really cool, and it was just a guy sitting on a bench. And that was where the inspiration started. And then I just, I guess, started to really reflect on myself in those moments.
Internalize.
And it just started to pour out. And that's exciting because when I go to the canvas, I have a very raw idea in mind, but then what comes out, I have no idea what it's going to be. And that's exciting.
So what's next for you?
So
do you ever do a 5-year plan, or do you kind of go with the flow? Do you have some things that you want to get to and some timelines, but it's kind of what is your planning like, and what's next?
So I have a solo exhibition in the fall, which I'm planning. That's really exciting. I've dabbled in fashion. I have plenty of samples, and I have plenty of products. When they'll be released is to be determined.
Okay.
But that is definitely in the works. And I have a couple of things going on with interior design and real estate development.
Okay.
So they're all related, but kind of just seeing which makes sense for me and when it makes sense for me. So they will happen, but I'm not sure which will happen when. I would like to say they're all going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. But in the short term, I'm focused on what I have going on in the fall, and just enjoying that journey. I'm planning for a 5,000 square feet gallery show. So I've never done something this large, and I want to completely enjoy that whole process. And while it doesn't have to be perfect, I just want to enjoy it. I want to get creative with it, and give that its full attention. I've never done this before, and I think it's going to be exciting.
I think so too. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to see kind of
You're on
how
the
it.
list.
Oh yes, darling. I would hope so, or else I'd be banging down the door. Excuse me. I didn't get an invite, but I'm coming in. That's cool. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share that you feel like you didn't get to touch on?
No, I think
for your viewers.
I think that we covered everything.
Yeah. I think some points that I find so or not even points, but some qualities in you that I find so relatable, but also important because they're important to me, is your love for family and how that plays a role in everything that you do, and kind of obviously all of your artwork and following in your dad's footsteps, even if it's not exactly, but you take such an interest in people's lives, and I think that's really important. and it shows in your art and your success. So
Thank you.
you know.
And I actually, it's funny that you said that, because when you asked me, you know, what do I have for like the short term and the long term plan, if I planned really much more than, you know, the next year ahead,
Yeah.
you know, and had it too firm in my mind, I might lose sight of my friends and my family.
Yeah.
And this is going to be an incredible amount of planning,
Yeah.
as well as still doing real estate,
Yeah.
as well as still going to Long Island for the contractor, and being a person, you know, and
Yeah, it's important
just,
to let things flow,
you know,
right?
while I don't watch TV often, every once in a while, I'll put on a movie, you know, and I do.
Do you
I
even have a TV? Oh, I see.
I do have it, but you know, I'll watch it every once in a while to relax or fall asleep. But it's important, you know. Family is key. At the end of the day, you have the family, and the family that is your blood family, and the family that you choose.
Yeah.
You know, and both should be given importance.
Yeah.
Because that's your support.
Yeah.
You know, and don't, to me, it's like, don't push them away and take their criticisms, right? When I started on this journey, I've been working completely for myself for 3 years now, just about, and I was scared shitless.
Yeah.
I had a lot of support, but I also had very little.
Yeah.
The people that supported me were few, but the amount of support that they gave me and their encouragement, you know, was everything that I needed.
It's better to have 4 quarters than 100 pennies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, I stuck through it.
Yeah.
And that was just enough belief for me
Yeah.
to continue believing in myself.
Yeah.
You know, and not say no.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you, Sheena.
having me in.
Thank you for coming.
I love it. I love it. I love everything about kind of like what you're putting out into the universe.